Hi everyone, the Lone Wolf here and welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Of course, the big thing that happened last week is the destruction of a keep star for the first time on TQ. That was quite a sight to behold, and there's even a scope video. You should definitely check that out and see if you recognize some of the footage there. What can I say? Last week we had, or the week before this week, we had the destruction of several titans in a pretty massive fight. And then this week we had the destruction of a keep star. I took the right 2 weeks off from work because that's what gave me the opportunity to be there and to cover both of those awesome events in EVE Online. Anyways, we are here for the market, of course. So as always, let's jump in here on the plex market. That will be at 50 seconds. Let's write that down. And plex basically have not moved in the last week or so. The sellers are still at $1.020 billion. The buyers are at 996 million. I think that's pretty much where they were before. So if we look at the chart here, we see some hesitation just above $1 billion ISK here for plexes. It's pretty interesting. It could be a combination of both the summer activity or the lower summer activity in EVE Online, and of course the increased demand that will start to set in, maybe from the new players from last weekend. That's a possibility that they gave the last little bump up here. So there are always so many factors to keep in mind when we're talking about plexes that it's very hard to say what exactly is going to happen or what are the forces that are currently having most influence on the price of plexes. But we're seeing a bit of a stalling on the increase in price, where we had a bottom in June of around 850 million ISK. We're now at $1 billion, and seemingly there is some hesitation there. My personal expectation on this though is that summer is ending. We are going to start to go back to school. Weather is starting to change a little bit as well. The days will be less long, and as a result I do think more and more people will come back to EVE Online. The big question for me personally is still, are we going to see the industrial arrays in September or in November normally? So the September release should be at the end of September, then there's usually 6 weeks between them, which should mean no release in October. And so if the industrial arrays will come in November, that could actually delay the increase in plex by quite a bit, because I do think that there will be quite a bit of hype around that. But for now, I feel pretty good about having purchased several plex at 900 million, which is right here. You can clearly see that that will have been the bottom. And the usual motion, this is a normal wave pattern that I've seen that was interrupted several years ago, but before that with the expansion cycle it always worked like this. You had a bottom at May, June, something like that during the summer, then plexes would increase, would peak winter, January, something like that, and then we would again gradually decrease back towards the summer. So if this pattern happens again, then the purchases at 900 million will have been very fruitful. On top of that, I also won 2 plex from the screenshot contest of the Titan fight. So that is 2 free plex that I can add to the pool, which is again going to reduce my average purchase price. So I'm looking pretty good for trying to take some profits at the end of the year. That is basically my plan for the plexes that I have at the moment. Am I going to purchase more of them? I would need to see a dip back well below $1 billion, maybe at 950 or 900 million. I would definitely pull the trigger again, but at the moment, nope. I think that there are better things to invest in. Next up, we've got the multiple pilot trading certificate. You can see that that one is going up in a much more straight line here, going to $1.050 billion on the chart, even a daily average of close to 1.1 billion. So here we can clearly see the decrease in price, again the bottom throughout the summer, and now a pickup in the price here at the tail end. This is quite surprising. Usually plex that has stalled here in the last week has a very strong correlation to the multiple pilot trading certificate. So it's very interesting to see the difference here, where the 5-day moving average is actually increasing much faster all of a sudden, and is really pulling up the 20-day moving average as well. And then this median daily price here at close to 1.1 billion. If this is an indicator of what's going to happen to plex, maybe a bit of a plex sale or something caused this little delay, then it's of course good news for my expectation that plex will actually start to go back up as the summer ends and activity picks back up. So trading certificates are actually selling for $1.084 billion. That's only one of them, and then they're going for 1.2 billion almost. That's pretty incredible. There are not many of them though, so just a few purchases from the sell orders are going to have a massive influence on the price. But buyers have gone up above $1 billion, $1.010 billion here for multiple pallet trading certificates. These are new orders, so this is one indication that the stalling of Plex might end and that we will actually start to go back up. Very interesting. Next up, the body resculpt certificates selling for 273 million. The buyers are at 240 million. Again, this is a very small market here in volumes. We had a bit of a bump up to 300 million, but now we're basically settling back down towards 240 million, which is a normal average, and those are the buy orders at the moment. So not that many people come in and buy these straight off the market. I think that there is no rush to it in the body resculpts at the moment, and as a result it's the buyers that are actually starting to dictate the price here, and we're going back to a medium price. What you can see though, I think both in the pilot multiple training certificate and in the body resculpts especially, are the extremely low volumes now. So here we have April, May, you can see that we have plenty of days where we actually reach 10, 15 of them. Here now throughout the summer we had days with none being traded or just one or two. And in the multiple pilot trading certificate, again you can see here a bit more activity, and here you can see much lower volumes on some days and some weeks. This is the summer, of course, showing its side on the economy. Next up, we've got the skill extractors. That could be very interesting because these once again very strongly correlated to Plex, and here we do see a mirror of the Plex chart. So again, the bottom May, June, something like that, then going up in price to 240 million. A bit of a hesitation, but push back to 240, but here we are again meeting between the 5-day moving average, 20-day moving average, and the daily median price just below 240 million. So the sellers are at 239.5 million, the buyers are at 231 million. So obviously a bit of hesitation. It is definitely something that is showing up both in the extractors and the Plex market. So there are two possible scenarios in my opinion. Either this is temporary because of a sale somewhere, somehow, or this is actually the normal, and then the multiple pilot trading certificate will actually have to jump back down a little bit. Skill extractors here, you can see the volumes on these are still massive. All of this in the last 24 hours. With sell orders of 70, 69, 99. It's just pretty crazy in the numbers when it comes to the volumes here, still doing pretty well. But once again here on the decline in price, you can see the decently high volumes, and here throughout the summer you can see the lower volumes as well. Next up, the skill injectors. That could be interesting as well, but jumping down to 590 million, quite interesting. Volumes here are also down, you can see that throughout the summer, but currently the sellers are at 607 million, the buyers are at 580 million. Personally, I think if you don't have like the billion ISK to start investing in Plexes, skill injectors are pretty interesting. You should be able to buy these close to 580 million, which is right here on the chart at the previous bottom price. And I think if you're expecting Plex to go back up, if you're expecting the increased activity to start revitalizing Plex related markets, then skill injectors could be the investment opportunity that still shows up, because here again we have this May-June bottom for skill injectors as well, but you can once again purchase close to that bottom price on the buy orders. And for Plexes we had the same bottom, but it's looking very difficult for that one to show back up. So I would say if you're still looking to invest in Plex related stuff, if like me you believe that Plex will go back up throughout the winter, and of course the related items as well, then look into skill injectors. It's 580 million, 600 million to buy a single one of them, and I actually think that this is investment worthy because we're once again reaching this 6-month low on the buyer side of things. So keep that in mind. It's going to be tricky to actually pick those up. If you want to be safe, probably you should put up a buy order of like 585, maybe in 590 million ISK, but anything below 600 million, honestly, I don't think it's a bad choice to do just don't pour all of your ISK in there. That's one thing to keep in mind, I think. So yeah, pretty interesting week here in Plex. This hesitation that I did not expect. Multiple pilot trading certificate actually going up substantially in price, and then the skill injectors actually going down in price quite substantially, with buyers at 580 million, which is the 6-month low. There is some opportunity in there, I personally think. Next up, let's touch on some minerals at 1010. And let's take a look at those. So first of all, we've got titanium that went up substantially in price, up to 6.10 ISK. That was definitely a nice pushback from the 6-month low that we reached at around 5.6 ISK. Here I said start hoarding your titanium. Don't just sell it all to the market, because you're actually getting a pretty bad price at the moment. At 6 ISK, you may want to sell. I think it's okay if you need the liquid. ISK, of course, 6.5, 6.6 is a complete no-brainer, but it's weird to see this pushback already from the bottom price. I actually thought that we had a ways to go before we would reach a bottom. So I was thinking close to 5 ISK could actually come into play at some point because of the continued pressure in the other minerals as well. But 597 for the sellers, 585 for the buyers. So you can see that the pressure is back a little bit already. But the volumes here for the sellers, although there are new sell orders, we're talking 100 million, 140 million, 64 million, 88 million. Compare that to a buy order of 1.7 billion ISK. This is not a picture that shows oversupply that is going to completely crash this price back down to 5.5 ISK all that quickly. So you can still sell close to 6 ISK. I don't think it's that bad if you need the cash. But personally, I'm still going to hold on to most of my stocks and see if there's not a better opportunity later down the line. But it's interesting to see this pushback here from the price. It's unexpected in my book. I thought we would go down more sharply. Next up, we've got pyrite, 9.2 ISK, still hovering at the 6-month low. This is of course not something you want to sell straight away. You do see that after going close to 9 ISK here on a median daily price, volume spike happened, so investors are starting to take their positions in this pyrite market. What's going to be interesting are, of course, the sellers and the buyers. Is there a lot of supply still coming in? Half a front page, a bit more than that. The volumes are 46, 45, 40 million and 20 million, something like that. The buyers here, we do have someone that's trying to buy 400 million a couple of days ago, but not that many are buying 50 million here, 20 million here. So at the moment, it's basically a couple of players that are still willing to both sell and buy at 9.2 ISK. For most investors, they would rather buy close to 9 ISK or below that. For most sellers, they're willing to hold off and wait for a better price. So the summer slump here in the pyrite market, pushing the price down quite a little bit. If you want this investment, if you have this extra ISK and you don't know what to do with it, buying pyrite below 9 ISK, I think, is a decent investment to make. It is once again something to look at considering this chart. If you can buy at 9 ISK, which is right here on the chart, and you can at some point sell for 11 ISK, that's definitely a decent profit to take. Next up, we've got Mexalon. We'll start with the chart on that one. Continuing its descent, although with a bit of hesitation at 64 ISK right here, but median daily prices quickly going down again. So here we have, let's take a look at this, if it wants to load. Let's turn down the volume a little bit in my headphones as well. 63.5 ISK for the sellers, 62 ISK for the buyers. If you remember that just about a month ago we could still sell for 74 ISK, the one strong high-SIC mineral. This is of course a serious pushback. 60 ISK, once we break that, we're in 6-month low territory, and I would not sell anymore. Even at these prices, I wouldn't sell anymore. I would wait for a better opportunity, definitely above 65 ISK. So the expectation happened, of course, during this plateau for Mexalon. All the other high-SIC minerals basically came under pressure due to oversupply, due to the lower summer activity. For some reason, Mexelon managed to hold on for several months at a very good price, but that was not going to last, as of course more and more miners would start to actively seek out Mexelon sources, because it was the only mineral that would make sense ISK per hour wise. And as a result, of course, oversupply, just a general lack of interest in minerals at the moment, was going to crash the price down. And that finally happened, and now we're actually starting to play with 60 ISK on the buyer side of things. So I think that this is actually going to continue to go down, despite the fact that we are so low in price. You can still see almost a full front page of recent sell orders, 40 million here, 30 million here. You have someone starting to take positions at 62 ISK as well, with 168 million units being bought right here. But after that, we can actually go down quite a little bit up until below 60 ISK right here on not that big of volumes. 34 million is still quite respectable as well, but I think it's in the cards. I think if in the next few weeks the pressure from the other high-SIK minerals, like here Isogen just crawling out of the 6-month low, still keeps up, then Mexelon could actually reach or break 60 ISK. I think it's in play. This is where I would actively start buying again if I had the ISK, but yeah, the pullback here, it was expected and it did materialize. So be a bit careful with your Mexelon. Don't just go selling like crazy, because you've been mining it like crazy on these high prices. At the moment, you need to be a bit careful here. So next up, Isogen. We already saw this just a moment ago, but we went as low as 80 ISK, which is of course a 6-month low, very low price. We crawled back a little bit to 84 ISK, which is probably going to be some investors taking positions decently slowly. You're not seeing a huge volume spike, but sellers are at 84.2 ISK, 28 million coming in here, 10 million here, full front page of new sell orders. And when it comes to the buyers, you have 81.25 ISK pretty much, 36 million here, and that's pretty much it. So demand is still almost non-existent. Some supply came back alive at 84 ISK, people willing to trade some of their Isogen for liquid ISK. If you need it, of course, sometimes you just have to do it. But personally, I would just hold off here. I would either buy close to 80 ISK, it's just a very, very good price for Isogen, or I would just not sell my stocks at the moment, just hold off, wait for a better opportunity. 95, 100 ISK should be in play at some point when Isogen comes back, and so that's what I would be waiting for here for Isogen. Next up, we've got Noxium that last week went to a 6-month low, to an all-time low, I think, of less than 400 ISK on a median daily price, something we've never seen before, because Noxium used to be much more valuable until CCP changed mineral compositions in some ores, and as a result, Noxium had been in the dumpster for quite a while. 460, 470 ISK was an average price for several months, which was already a historically extremely low price. And then, to my great surprise, although I never really said, well, you should buy or sell in Noxium, I was always quite a bit sketchy of how low it maintained its price. I was thinking at some point it's gonna pull back, but no, looks like the summer activity actually even decreased the price, and going up to below 400 million on a 400 ISK on a day is pretty damn crazy. To see this is just the loser of the mineral rebalancing that happened more than a year ago has been Noxium, and right now it's just in a terrible place. But again, if you're looking for an investment, we once again have a chart that is at a 6-month low. You can see it's pulling back once again. There's even someone just dumping 1 million units at 400 ISK right here. Buyers are at 390 ISK. This is something you can start to keep an eye on once again, to maybe make some investments. Again, don't go all out. I would never go all out on anything anymore. I did that in Plex. It definitely cost me a lot of ISK, but if you're looking for some diversification, a chart like this makes a lot of sense to try and purchase some of this Noxium. 390 for the buyers, honestly extremely low price for Noxium. If activity comes back, some Noxium demand should come back as well. The biggest problem, of course, if you look at the chart, then 450, 460 is probably your range. and that is just over 10%. So I don't think that it is as good a purchase as some of the other minerals, but it is definitely something to keep in mind as well when you're looking for investment opportunities. This Noxium is now going for less than 400 ISK, which is extremely low. We've never seen Noxium this low before. Next up, the Nullsic minerals. We've got Zydrine here pulling back a little bit after playing with its bottom of 1050 ISK once again just a couple of weeks ago. So there is some hesitation in the market, but we're going to 1100 ISK and we're staying just above that, I think. 1117 for the sellers, 1058 ISK for the buyers. Honestly, I would maybe buy some Zydrine if you expect to need it at some point as well. As an investment, your bottom of 1050, where you could have probably purchased Zydrine for less than 1000 ISK on the buy orders. These were your two opportunities. Right now, I feel I wouldn't risk it anymore. I would wait for maybe a pullback once again towards that range before I would invest in Zydrine, unless, as I've said, you're actively using those minerals. Then of course putting up some buy orders makes a lot of sense, and we can maybe see that reflected a little bit. You do have a full page here of sell orders in the last 24 hours, but the numbers here are pretty timid. They're like 100,000, 200,000. This is in the range of allowing a single player to do industry for several months. 5 million here, a bit of an investment at 1042 ISK. But other than that, these volumes I think are in line with what people expect to need for a while. When it comes to the sellers, not that much anymore. The biggest problem is, if you look for just a couple of days ago, 1 million, 3 million, 1.5 million. These are still pretty big numbers that are being brought to the market, which means that it should put some extra pressure on the Zydrine markets. So if we see the buy orders dip below 1000 ISK, that's a great opportunity, but we still have a little bit to go before we actually get there. And honestly, I'm seeing a decent amount of people apparently that are willing to put up small buy orders, presumably, which is what I would do as well, for Zydrine they expect to need later down the line. This is not something that they're planning to make a trade on, to take huge profits on, but this is just stuff that they need, so the demand is still there for Zydrine as well. I don't expect a complete crashing of the price anytime soon. Megasite is slowly going down, to my surprise. We have data points going below 1300 ISK here. That's pretty interesting. In the last week, we definitely seem to have some momentum to try and reach 1300 ISK. So the margin here pretty big. Sellers 1312 ISK, buyers 1211 ISK. Once again, what I'm seeing here is similar pattern, half a front page of buy orders in the last 24 hours, 2 million, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 here. This is stuff that, again, industrialists might want to buy as a use for their megasite. When it comes to the sellers, though, you have a full front page here of new sell orders despite lower prices, where we're talking 700,000 here, 500,000 here, 820,000 here. These are much bigger numbers. These are probably still people dumping megasite that they've been mining in pretty big fleets in Nullsic somewhere. Which is putting the pressure on the price, which is, I think, pretty good for people that want to purchase some megasite. Do you want to make an investment in that? I think it's still pretty risky. If you see that the chart did go to 1050 ISK or 1100 ISK, I would hold off a little bit on both of these. And then finally we've got Morphite, which is trying to hold on, actually at around 11,000 ISK or just below that, but you do have median daily prices slowly edging towards 10,000 ISK. Let's take a look here. Sellers 1,500 pretty much. There are still a decent amount of sellers, full front page of new Morphite coming in. Buyers 9,900 ISK. And so below 10,000 ISK, this is a dip that we got from Eve Prosper, should be a really good investment for Morphite on the next set of volatility. So this, once again, Morphite here starting to play towards a 6-month low here. starting to be pretty interesting for an investment. Again, if you have use for more fight, I think it's definitely makes sense to put up some buy orders between 9,900 and 10,000 ISK, but that is Tech 2 related, is going to be quite a bit more tricky. So personally, I would wait for the right opportunity to actually buy some of these as an investment. So it's pretty interesting. The mineral market in general, I would say, is under pressure because of the lower summer activity, but as always, this creates opportunities if people know what to look for. Next up, we get the Tech 1 markets, 2430. Let's quickly go over these ships. I think I added a mining barge on request. So we've got the Armageddon here, clearly under pressure over 6 months. Median price of just above 180 million here just a couple of days ago. So currently they're selling for 194.4 million. Interestingly enough, we have 120 and 87 of them coming in the last 24 hours. The buyers very timid here, 180 million. This basically means that there is no demand for Armageddons. It's strange that such big supply numbers would come in from two sell orders. This is just going to put more pressure on the Armageddon market, so expect that to go even lower. Next up here we've got the Caracal holding on at 11.5 million. You can see a little bit of a downtrend since May here. 12 million was the average before, now 11.5 million, playing with 11 million here and there. This is just normal. Lower activity means a bit less demand, but it's still doing pretty well. 11.8 million for the sellers, 10.3 million for the buyers on the Caracal. Really decent volumes here, 286 of them coming in. To my surprise, a lot coming in the last 24 hours despite decently low prices. Same with the Armageddon, not a lot of sell orders, but there's definitely more supply than demand if you look at these volumes. Next up we've got the Coveter here. Data point up to 36 million. That's interesting. Sellers are at 38 million, buyers are at 29 million. All of this is pretty recent. This pretty much smells like someone decided to buy a lot of Coveters or buy the entire Coveter market pretty much, put them back up at a premium price where they're okay with taking some profits, and then hoping that the September release is going to actually allow them to unload all of this and to actually take the profits. It's a possibility. I don't think it's such a bad idea. It's decently risky though. So triple top here at around 36 million on the chart, now going for 38 million on the seller side of things. Obviously some volatility. I personally think it is due to the planned rebalancing and of course visual upgrade for the mining barges. Next up here we've got the Drake, shooting back up to 59 million ISK from 52 million ISK. That's definitely more than 10%. This is some volatility starting to show up here. Quite interesting. So 59.3 million for the sellers, 52 million for the buyers. Quite a decent margin between those two. Half a front page of new sell orders, including 53 and 52. This should stop the increase in price at around 60 million. So this was some market volatility, quite interesting. The Drake may be used somehow in some PvP fleets, maybe like Horde or Tests. No, Tests probably has the skill points to feel better stuff, but yeah, Horde maybe trying to make some Drake fleets or something like that, as newer players tend to evolve from frigates to cruisers to battle cruisers. I think it's definitely a possibility. We do see some pretty decent volumes here as well for a summer slump. So the Drake, some volatility, going for a pretty high price. If you can make some Drakes, why not try to take advantage of these higher prices? The Mauler next here, going up to 11.6 million, just on a little bit of a hesitation, but the trend has clearly been down in the last 6 months. The volumes down and almost non-existent as well. And this is unfortunately the supply-demand situation for the Mauler. A couple still coming in the last 24 hours above 12 million, 12.1 million, but the buyers just aren't there. This market is pretty much dead, which is why of course you do have some swings between 11 million and 12 million, because sometimes a couple of people do want to buy a few Maulers. They just buy them straight off the market. Sometimes nobody buys anything, and then it's just a couple of industrialists that are a bit impatient and are willing to sell a couple of them to to the buyers. That's when you get the low point, and the high point is why you get this jittery chart, because there's basically a couple of players can decide which side wins out. Next up here we get the Myrmidon. After all of that volatility, we went back up to 60 million and we're slowly going back down. 60.8 million for the sellers, 56 million for the buyers. Buyers actually going up a little bit in price. That's interesting. Recent buy orders are actually at 53.4 million still. Quite interesting. 56 million. Is this not getting filled? That's quite strange. 56 million is still right here on the, well, yeah, not that high on the chart. So this volatility in the Myrmidon, I don't really know what's happening. I think there's either Myrmidon fleets being built up, or this is a big investor that is actually, I think, taking quite a few losses on the purchases on the way up here. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 increases in price here since May. This is some crazy volatility in a Tech 1 ship. I think it's something pretty unusual, and I couldn't exactly tell you what's happening here. Were there opportunities? Honestly, I don't think so, because you can see that every time the price shot up to 66-70 million, it dropped back down to its average of 54 million in no time whatsoever. So this is just not something that you can count on to unload any Myrmidons at these high points. It was just too fast for that every single time. Next up here we get the Oracle. This is quite okay, 85 million on an average, currently going for around 80 million. Sellers are at 82.5 million, buyers are at 77 million. That's actually decently low for the Oracle. We do see that this bump up in price here, double bump in fact, went with 2 big volume spikes. So this probably means a couple of Nausicaa alliances building a few Oracle fleets, which have been a doctrine at some points, not super used, but from time to time you do see Oracle fleets. Next up we've got the Procure. Again, a bit of volatility. It went up to 27 million with a bottom at 22 million. It's definitely not bad, around 10%, 20% in fact even. And here we see a latest bump up to 26 million, presumably on the changes for the mining barges, but that's already being digested, so I suspect we see quite a bit of fresh supply coming in the last few days. 110 of them here are of course going to put a stop to any increase in price, and then we still see some of them trickling in. So the Procure, some volatility to be spotted, but we're currently heading back to a normal price of around 23 million. Next up we've got the Raven battleship, staying at around 285 million. Data point a bit high here, but that's probably for today, so that could still go back down. And the Ravens availability is surprisingly high. There are several Ravens, still 45 of them coming in a couple of hours ago. Demand is not that great. I mean, this is pretty much all there is, going for 172 million ISK. So this is going to put pressure on the Raven price. It's already pretty damn low, but to my surprise availability is decent here. Next up we've got the Retriever chart that actually went to a 6-month low of 25.5 million, shot back up a little bit to 27.5, but we still have a ways to go towards an average price of 29 million. The Retriever here, very interesting chart in my opinion, because you can see that March up to May we see quite a bit of stability. 29 million was the price for a Retriever. Then we went up to 30.5 million. It's not even that much, and then you can start to see quite a bit of volatility here in the Retriever market. Maybe it was FanFest, an announcement of changes to the mining barges that has started quite a bit of speculation in the Retriever market, and then unfortunately here at the tail end people said nope, we don't want Retrievers anymore, and now a bit of recuperation, but still a ways to go from the average price before all of this volatility. This is definitely an interesting chart. I'm reading this as FanFest announcement triggering some volatility. I may be wrong on that, but I think that's a plausible story. Next up here we've got the Stabber, also went down to 9.8 million, shot back up to 10.6, which is an okay average. Unfortunately, all of these Tech 1 cruisers, very low supply, very low demand, so this volatility just doesn't have the volumes behind it to actually make a lot of money for industrialists at the moment. Next up here we've got the tornado, went down to 68 million as well, going back up to 74, back in line with normal averages. 78 for the sellers, 64 for the buyers, a decent margin between these two, but right smack in the middle of course is 74, which is pretty much an average price where both tops and bottoms tend to converge back towards. So 74 million for a tornado is definitely apparently the average and normal price. What we do see here once again is that we reach a 6-month low below 70 million ISK, and as a result several parties, or at least one party, decided to purchase several tornadoes. Quite a big volume spike here, of course increasing the price once again as well on that buy opportunity. And next up here we get the Typhoon, going for 180 million, which is again the average over the last 6 months. Decent availability, there just isn't that much demand for battleships at the moment. And then finally we've got the Vexor, which also knew a bit of volatility together with the Myrmidon, so this is also a Galente cruiser, but that is apparently dying down now to 12 million ISK. So it's going to be interesting in the next few weeks if the Myrmidon is also going to start to die down here. Decent volumes of course for the Vexor, awesome PvE ship in my opinion, great for missions, extreme versatility for any mission type because of both the small and the medium drones, and it even has a pretty decent cargo bay. So if you want to switch it up with a few missions, transport missions, the Vexor is actually something that I personally use when I want to grind some standings, right? Just I want to change some level 1 and level 2 missions. Just grab a Vexor, it does all of that very, very efficiently. So yeah, sellers going for 12 million, buyers 11.5 million, decent amount here, 199 units coming in, but still 37, 20 and 24 here as well, which basically should help with stability at around 12 million for the Vexor. That's it for the Tech 1 ships. Let's move on to some Tech 2 ships then. 34, 35, 45 for Tech 2s. My expectations, again, because of the summer slump and the tax changes, I don't think we'll see a lot of volatility. Basilisk went down to 190 million, slowly going back up to 210 billion, so 190 for the buyers. You can see recent buyers coming in, including 20 of them. So people decided Basilisk at 190 is a decent price. You can see demand increase. Sellers went up to 204.5 million, and as a result here the chart is slowly hovering back towards its average between 200 and 210 million. It's very tricky to actually try and find a good bottom and a purchase opportunity. Last week maybe, but as you can see a lot of people came in here and are actually pushing the price back up above 190 million. It remains too big a gamble for me personally. Next up, the Cerberus holding on at 220 million. Of course you don't want to buy, you don't want to sell at this point in the chart, so unfortunately again too stable and not in the right spot for a buy opportunity. Next up here, the Claw, 20 million, slowly going back down again. If the buyers are below 18 million, you could risk it. Yeah, 17.5 million, very little demand, decent supply, including 114 coming in here despite low prices. I would say the Claw for longer term investment is a possibility because you can definitely pick this one up at 18 million or less. So one buy opportunity spotted. Unfortunately, look at the last 4 months. If you're looking for volatility, as I've said in the Tech 2 markets at the moment, I don't think you can count on Twitch trading anymore. I think you have to wait for a big nullsec war until you can actually unload investments that you do now. So you need a much bigger horizon than before the Citadel expansion because of the tax changes. The Guardian here going for 170 million, but just look at these charts. Is this something that you want to buy or sell? Honestly, I probably don't want to, so nope. No, just not in the right spot. Here is the Hound, had a bit of an opportunity going for 18 and even 17 million on a single day, but that pulled back to 20 million and is still trying to stay in the 19 to 20 million range. Buyers are at 17.8 million. Again, if you want to risk this, you could, but you need a long-term horizon. You can buy Hounds for practically 18 million on any volatility. You'll make some profit, but how long is that going to take? Very difficult to say. And as you can see, unfortunately, we don't have the big spikes of 20, 30, even 40% that we used to see on these bottom formations. You just have a very timid increase in price from 18 million to 20 million, and then just a meandering in this trade range, which unfortunately is not good for people that actively want to trade in these ships. Next up, we've got the Ishtar, which I think is again pretty damn high at 210 million, slowly going down now, so increased supply probably. Yeah, definitely pretty good availability. Demand here going for 194.7 million, so 195, still around here on the chart, still a little bit too high, considering we had the bottom at 170 million ISK. So again, nope, I would not invest in this. Next up here we get the Manticore, going down to 22 million, shooting up to 26 million. So you could have purchased these for close to 20, but here is the bad news once again, coming already, new supplies already coming in at 24.5 million. And buyers already at 24.2 million. So you could have bought them for 22 million, but all this hassle for 2 million in profits with then higher taxes, it just doesn't make it worth it. You need these kind of spikes up to 32 million, which was from the war, in order to actually make these investments worthy. 22 million on the chart seems to be a good price to at least risk the investment if you want to. Next up, we've got the Nemesis Stealth Bomber, unfortunately, again, slowly going up in price in the last 4 million to 22 million, so definitely no buy opportunity to be spotted here. I would need to see 18 million, less than that on the buy orders to say, okay, maybe you want to buy some Nemesis Stealth Bombers. Oneros next went down substantially to 160 million, but then what I feared definitely happened. We basically bump off of this price, and we're looking to slowly stay here. So 140 million would be really nice, but we're still at 153 on the buyers. So while the pullback in price is quite substantial from the top at 200 million ISK, again, we're not pulling back low enough to actually be able to buy these Oneros back already. So you had a buy opportunity in May at around 140, sell opportunity that took 2.5 months to form at 200 million ISK, then a bit of volatility, sure, but never to the point where you would gamble buying at this point or this point. You'd need to see the chart back at 140 million to be sure of your purchase. So this just, yeah, this is the taxes, I think, that are killing the volatility that used to be in the Tech 2 market. Next up, the Purifier slowly going down to 19 million ISK. Again, if you look at this chart, looks quite okay. Buyers are at 18.6 million. Maybe if you want to risk a few of them, you could try it. Next up, we've got the Raptor, just too stable at 24 million ISK. I mean, are you going to make trade money on this chart? Definitely no. On this, yeah, sure. But since Citadel, it's just not happening anymore. And finally, we've got the Scimitar. That is more interesting, dropping down to 145 million. Are the buyers below 140 million? Yes, they are. 135.8 million. I would call this an opportunity. I would also call this one of the more interesting ships, because since May it did actually go up from 145 to 170, drop back to 155. So this is not where you're gonna make a lot of trade money, but now dipping back to 145 million on the chart. Purchases of 135, 136 million, I should say, are possible here. This is interesting. Scimitar, I would say, if you have the ISK for a Tech 2 gamble, I would put it in the Scimitar here, considering this chart. Pretty interesting. The final one showing a little bit of a gap in my theory that the taxes are completely killing Tech 2 volatility. Next up, Tech 3, 4250. Sounds good. 45, yep. Let's take a look at these. It honestly is starting to look like either demand is picking up, or supply is just holding off at the moment, because the confessor is holding just below 52 million ISK. Are we seeing new confessors come in? Sure, plenty of them. 51.2, 49 million for the buyers. So we definitely went up 10 million from the June-July bottom here. The question is, will this massive supply, full front page of new confessors, actually drop the price back down once again? And the thing is that we saw a lot of them, including the cruisers, shoot up in the last few weeks. We saw more volatility, and so it is possible that there is just more demand for these ships, and that supply just isn't able to completely overwhelm everything anymore, and as a result we may start to see higher normal prices for some of these. Next up we've got the Hecate. Shooting up. At some point it was going to happen. If the confessor goes for 50 million and you can buy Hecates for 44 million, at some point someone is going to make a move on that. And so currently they're selling for 49 million ISK. Demand is still coming in pretty strong right here at 41 million. So the Hecates, I think, where people are still gambling for an opportunity, but the chart is shooting back up to 50 million ISK. And I think if the supply can hold off on completely dumping Hecates on this opportunity, which they can considering the confessor price, then this could be here to stay a little bit more. Next up we've got the Jackdaw holding at 46 million ISK. That's unfortunate for me, because I tried to sell them at 49 million, so that's not gonna work out anymore. But 47.5 million for the sellers, 43 million for the buyers. You do see new supply, not that much anymore, so people are focusing on other ships, and thus the Jackdaw is able to maintain a slightly higher price than its bottom, and we would need a lot of supply across all ships to see this pull back to another buy opportunity. Next up we've got the Svepul that is, let's take, shot up to 60 million ISK. This is of course where production should be heading, not the Jackdaw, Hecate or the Confessor, but the Svepul. We should see a decent amount of them, and we do. 2 pages, definitely like 2 pages of new Svepuls. We shot up to 60 million, so now 57.5, 56.9, 54.9, 55 million, 54.9. So here again, a lot of supply coming in here, huge supply over the last 24 hours, and before that on this spike. It's where, of course, sellers want to make their money, because the Svepul is going at 58 million. The thing is, of course, that this is going to fall back to, let's say, 50 million, and this should put more pressure on all of the other ones to slowly go back towards 50 million ISK in price across the board, because why would you be making Jackdaws for 46 million ISK when you can at least gamble on some Svepuls for 58, 56 million, and a pretty short thing of confessors at around 52 million? Just doesn't make a lot of sense. As a result, these are slowly going up in price and finding a higher price range. Looks like a summer bottom is what has formed here. Next up, the cruisers. Here is the Legion, bottom a bit earlier here in May, slowly edging up to 160 million. Availability, half a front page of new ones, 10, 20, nothing too drastic. So this is finally stabilizing here. Throughout the summer we had huge oversupply. I think that this market is coming back a little bit. We again see bottom May and then June, coming back up to 150 million, so still has a ways to go, but 153 for the sellers, 142 for the buyers. What do we see? 6 new sell orders, 831, quite a bit less. It has potential to go back up slowly on the Loki as well. Next up here we've got the Proteus, again May, June as a bottom. A bit of volatility up to 170, but still holding at 155 million with a slight uptrend at the end. So again, new sell orders, just 4 of them, 2, 1, 2, 2, not that much at 160 million ISK. So again, we're not seeing those huge oversupply numbers anymore, and we're seeing slowly increasing Tech 3 prices. They're definitely finding a new trade range after their summer bottoms. And then finally here we've got Tengu after a bit of volatility, with the bottom again here in June at 240 million, now going back up 163 million for the sellers, 147 million for the buyers. It's interesting that it's the summer slump that has caused huge oversupply in the Tech 3 market, but that actually seems to be over already with increased activity and increased interest. After the summer, we may actually see volatility come back to the Tech 3 market now that I'm seeing what's been happening in the last few weeks. Quite interesting. And then for the extra material at 48.30 by the time I get there, we're gonna touch on some PI. The request was for stuff like coolants, so let's go look for those. Manufacturing and research, materials, planetary materials, and I think those are they refined? Let's see if coolants, yeah, so I think it's pretty much this category that was requested. We've got coolants, enriched uranium, a lot of fuel related stuff was asked, but we'll just quickly go through the chart of these refined planetary materials. So quite interesting, again, summer bottom, June, July, and biocells going up substantially in price from 8,000 ISK to 11,000 ISK. Definitely, again, a trend with a top here as well around the Citadel expansion. That's quite normal because a lot of PI was needed for the production of Citadels. So decent pullback here, bottom in June, August, and pull back up here. Next up, construction blocks. This actually had a bottom at around May already and is now just meandering at 40,000 ISK, which is a decently high price for construction blocks. Consumer electronics next, again, May bottom, then shooting up to 16,000 ISK and just trading in this range in the last few months or so. So high point again. Next up here we've got the coolants. Holy crap, again bottom in May, now going for 14,000 ISK, pretty high point here for the coolants. Not bad, I'm producing that, so that's a good opportunity for me. Next up, enriched uranium, very similar chart. So this is awesome, an awesome suggestion, honestly, because we're clearly seeing a trend here. I think that what is happening here is pre-Citadel speculation, just an incredible increase in price in a lot of the PI stuff, but after Citadel expansion, a bottoming out at around May, and then throughout the summer actually increasing back towards a pretty high point at the moment. Fertilizer, completely different chart, probably not related to Citadels or constructions, is what we can expect when we see a chart like this. Top in June and now back to a 6-month low of 10,000 ISK. So if you're looking for a purchase, this again is a possibility. Genetically enhanced livestock, very similar to fertilizers, with a bottom in July, end of June, and now again at a 6-month low just a couple of days or weeks ago. Livestock, again to be expected, very similar, quite interesting. Mechanical parts here, actually holding at 9,000 ISK, which is a pretty low point, a little bit of an increase in price at the tail end. Microfiber shielding, again with the June, July top and then a decrease in price. Miniature electronics shooting up in the last few days, that's quite interesting. High trade range throughout the summer, bit of a pullback to 16,000 ISK and currently selling for 20,000 ISK for miniature electronics. Pretty high point for this one once again. Nanites next, again a different chart, a slow increase in price from around 5,000 ISK to 9,000 ISK over 6 months for nanites. Next up here we've got oxides. Let's take a look at these. Starts at 12,000 ISK, currently at 7,000 ISK, definitely a low point, although not a 6-month low. That was here in July again. You can see though 6,000 ISK, big investment volume spike right here, causing the price to increase, and now we're just holding at 7,000 ISK, which is still pretty damn low. Polyaramids next, again top in May, low point at the moment, 6-point low pretty much. Polytextile top in June, but still trying to hold on to 14,000 ISK, some volatility at the end here, quite interesting. Definitely not the 6-month low point. Rocket fuel next, again a slow increase in price over 6 months is what I'm reading in this one. Silicate glass top in May, bottoming out but already picking back up to 20,000 ISK. Honestly, if you look at 15,000 to 35,000 ISK, going back down to 10,000 ISK, there were some great trade opportunities in this. I'm almost tempted to make this an extra category, but just imagine how long my ETH talks are going to be then. This may be something that I would need to check on a different basis, because it is super interesting though. Look at this again. Bottom at 10,000 ISK, top at 19,000 ISK, pretty much doubling in price in June, now falling back to 12,000 ISK. Super tensile plastics next, starts at 12,000, ends at 16,000 with a top at 26,000 ISK right here. And again, not that long ago we had a 6-month low of 12,000 ISK that came into play, increased volume, so people were picking up on that and actually purchasing a lot of these. Synthetic oil next, yeah, just 6-month low not that long ago at 6,000. We're bumping back out of this. This is still in interesting territory, but once again you can see that there are some major players, I think, that are keeping a close eye on this market, because as we reach 6-month low of 6,000 ISK, a big trigger in volumes here, obviously a major investment in synthetic oil, in my opinion, at the exact right time. Test cultures next, very similar here, top in June, going back down to 6,000 ISK, and now slowly trying to recover from that. Transmitters next, very stable here, transmitters, something completely different, just 18,000 ISK throughout the last 5 months or so. And viral agents next, well, bit of a bump up in July, so again from 10,000 to 25,000 ISK, that's a pretty good trade. Here again, going down below 10,000 ISK, increase in volumes, shooting the price up to 15,000 ISK. And then water-cooled CPU, top right here up to 18,000 ISK, so again pretty much doubling in the price, going back down to 8,000 ISK here once again. Honestly, very good suggestions. Refined planetary materials. I actually feel that PI is much more complex than I sometimes give it credit for. I would think that PI is so low effort that people can generally just manage constant supply and that demand shouldn't switch out that much, but apparently I'm wrong. There is quite some volatility to be spotted here, quite some opportunities here. If you have enriched uranium that you bought for 10,000 ISK, you can currently easily sell that for 17,000 ISK, 70% profit, not bad at all. It is maybe something that I need to look into a little bit more. I'm just not sure how to do it, because we're now already going at 55 minutes, and if I would be able to check all of this, it would be another extra full ETH talk, I think, if I would check out all of the planetary materials. But maybe it's worth it. I'll need to do a bit more analysis on this. Very good suggestions. So this was refined planetary materials, and we saw huge swings, huge opportunities to make and lose money here, to my surprise. So thank you very much for that. I'll look into covering more of this somehow. But for now, that's going to be it for this ETH talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.